podcast. My name is Keith Welsh. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about ripples, giving things space, letting them breathe. More importantly, giving space to the nervous system and allowing it to settle. But before that, go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com to continue to support this. I appreciate it very much. I love you guys. You're very kind. Okay, so this is a kind of a visualization that I do with a lot of clients where, ask, imagine yourself standing in a lake and you are up to your waist in water. And the water is very calm, it's very still, it's like glass. Some of you may have heard this before. I don't remember where I heard it or read it or who said it. But I love the analogy. So you're standing in this water and, someone throws a giant rock into the water or a boulder or whatever, and it creates all of these ripples. And you have this very strong aversion to the ripples because you really liked the beauty of the flat, glassy water. You loved it. It was peaceful. It was wonderful. And then some asshole throws this giant rock in there and creates all these ripples. And so out of frustration, you start to slap the ripples down with your hands. And that obviously creates more ripples, which makes everything worse, And then it takes even longer to get back to that place of stillness and in that calm water, if ever, right? Because if the aversion to the ripples is strong enough, you'll just continually, right, keep patting and patting and patting and patting. Well, that's like the ripples are essentially your emotions. It's your nervous system. And, someone was just pointing out to me, I'm a Gemini. And then she was saying, she's like, you give me a lot of space. And, I like that because I'm a Gemini. And I do. And I don't know that it's because I'm a Gemini as much as it's because I've just practiced it. Because at one point in my life, I did not do that. At one point, I was very, this has to get figured out right now. There has to be a resolution right now. If I was angry at you, we were going to talk about this until I felt better. Some of you might identify with that. I was definitely not when it comes to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, I was definitely not a freeze or flight person. I was definitely a fight person, which it wasn't that I was fighting for resolution. I was fighting to be right. Right? So back to this ripple thing, everyone that's listening to this right now has had to apologize for doing or saying something because they were angry or they were scared, or more accurately, they were scared, which then turned into anger and then they overreacted. In fact, recently I apologized to somebody because of something that I did very abruptly, very quickly, because I was scared. I wasn't mean to them. I wasn't angry with that. But I got very scared, and so I said, done, okay. And I ended up apologizing because I realized that was very, in their mind, to them, and their experience of it was very cruel. And I'm not saying in their experience to dismiss them, because it's your experience is in your own mind, and it's very valid, very real. I'll say it's very real. I don't necessarily know that it's valid, but that it was painful for them, and so my fear created more pain for them, and here I am smacking down these ripples again. Making things a little worse until somebody has, the wherewithal to correct it or do something. But as far as giving it space, giving these ripples space, you give them enough space to play themselves out, to ripple themselves out until the water then becomes calm again. everyone has been angry or sad and done something rash. And it's like somebody gets mad, right? They get angry and they punch the wall. You've never seen somebody, I personally have never punched a wall. Actually, no, I take that back. One time in my life, I was so angry, I literally felt as though I was outside of my body and could not stop it. And it started off, I was in my car screaming fuck as loud as I could. And I was watching myself scream and couldn't stop myself. I got out, I boxed a bunch of tow away signs, couldn't stop myself, broke my clipboard, and threw papers all over the road. And also got so mad that I spit on the ground, which is something I never do. That was probably the most angry I've ever been. And it was anger that was rooted in a tragedy that happened the day before. Yeah. But, no one ever punched. I'll tell you what, I did all that and I didn't feel better afterwards. I've seen people punch walls, fences, all sorts of shit. Remember, I work in mental health, and they don't suddenly feel better. You've never punched a wall, said something. You've never you never brought relief after you did it. In fact, you stayed maybe you weren't as angry. I don't know. I wasn't as angry after I, pitched a fit, but I wasn't fucking doing good. I mean, I kind of had to get the anger under control because I had a job to do. But fuck, man. So all that ripple padding didn't do anything. In fact, when I got that angry, I didn't feel better. The anger was still there. And I had to keep going to my boss. I'm so grateful to be surrounded by so many really talented therapists. And my clinical director, Katie, is the best. She was so willing to talk to me through that. And we had something that happened at work. It was very tragic. And we did everything we could to save this, and and I was having a lot of feelings, a lot of confusing emotions, and she was so willing to just sit and talk to me and listen to me and offer me really thought-provoking, perspective-shifting points of view that I would say to somebody else, but when you're in it, it's so close to you, you can't fucking see it. And so you need somebody that can go, hey, flip it around, and I did, and I'm forever eternally grateful to her for that. And I'm just so fortunate to be surrounded by people like that all the time. But my nervous system required time, and what the reality of that whole situation is that all of the ripples that reverberated through my nervous system, there was nothing to do, right? There was nothing to do. It was more just I need to get very still and very quiet and allow this to just ripple out, and the ripples settle down, and then the next appropriate thing, and then the next appropriate thing, and you just keep doing the next appropriate thing. But in those high intensity moments, even with sadness, because nobody wants to be angry, nobody wants to be sad, nobody wants those things. And the mind doesn't want it, because the illusion of the mind is that everything is permanent. The mind believes that it's all going to stay that way. So when we're angry or we're sad, the mind goes, oh, it's always going to be this way unless you do something very drastic, this is always going to be this way. So when you're sad, the mind's like, this is how it's going to be forever. You got to do something about this. Get happy. Get rid of the sadness. This person's making you sad. This place is making you sad. Let's get the fuck out of here. Same thing with anger. This person's doing this and this, we just got to get the fuck out of here, or fucking punish them, or whatever it is. But you got to fix this because you're going to be angry forever. That's just not the case. you know, everything levels off. You know, happiness, love, it all just kind of levels off. I'm not saying it goes away, but it levels off. You know, you get in a new relationship and everything's crazy. You leave a relationship and everything's crazy, and there's just so much pain and but it all runs its course, you know. And usually anything that you do to correct, quote unquote, correct the sadness, or to correct the anger, get rid of the anger, or anything you do to grab a hold of or maintain the happiness or whatever, and just stay happy forever, those things tend to make everything worse. That if you could just be still. And being still doesn't mean you're going to feel better. It just means you're still, right? Being quiet doesn't mean that it's just going to feel better. It just means you're quiet. But what you're doing is allowing the nervous system to ripple, giving it space, letting it breathe, let it ripple, and then respond, you know? And a lot of times what I've found is that, especially when it comes to being angry, because, you know, anger is a thing for me. And a thing for me. I have a lot of negative thinking. I'm working on it. It's, you know, I'm one of those people that who experiences depressive states. You know, some thoughts that are go for the hard reset kind of thing. Just hit restart, reset it. So I'm prone to that, and I have to be very aware of it. And a lot of times that requires space. I just have to be that way. Just, this is how it is right now. You know, give it some space, give it some time, let it breathe. It's okay to be sad. It's even okay to be depressed sometimes. It's okay to, it's okay. You know? We feel things, you know, and that non-reactivity is a very important thing. You know, to learn to respond to things rather than react. You know, everyone listening to this has heard that before, because if you're listening to this, you've been dabbling in some spiritual stuff for a bit. You know, I think that's the benefit of meditation, is that literally going to the breath, the sensation of the air going in at the nose, the sensation of warm air going out of the nose, that thing, you're literally breathing, giving air, giving space. You know, because, you know, in the Vijnana Bhairava, Shiva is teaching meditation, and he's, you know, saying at the top and the bottom of the breath, realize at the top and the bottom of the breath is a space. You know, that's why when you're doing rebirth breathing, it's that figure 8 thing. It's because you're not giving the breath space. Right? During meditation, you are giving it space. Right? You exhale and you feel that moment at the bottom of the breath, especially, where there's nothing, you're not breathing out, you're not breathing in, there's a literal space. It's actual, right? And what the mind is typically doing isn't actual, it's imagination and fantasy and all that. You're imagining how bad it's going to be or how good it's going to be, you're fantasizing how bad it's going to be or fantasizing how good it's going to be, and none of it's really real, right? So by finding the breath, you know, and becoming friends with it, you know, not just during meditation, but during your day, just always checking in with the breath, finding it, making sure that it's easy and slow, you know, and that literally gives it space. You're giving it actual space. You're giving the nervous system time to ripple, you know, And if you're going to the breath thinking that your anger is going to subside immediately or that your sadness is going to subside immediately, it's not. You're going to be breathing slowly angry, and you're going to be breathing slowly sad. So we're not here to get rid of the sensations of being a human. We're here to learn to be better at it. We're not trudging the spiritual path so that we never feel sadness again. We trudge the spiritual path so that when sadness comes, we are better at it being sad, really. Or when anger comes, we're better at being angry instead of making everything worse. So when life, disturbs placid lake whatever, in the mind, let the ripples ripple. Let it kind of give it space to just be what it is. Give it space to be angry. Give it space to be sad. All that kind of stuff. Give it room. Allow it to ripple. Eventually it all goes back to what it was. I'm also not including trauma in this. That's obviously a totally different situation. But yeah, that's it. So if you liked this, go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com where you can continue to support this effort through Patreon, Venmo, buying books, the sort of thing. Book 3 is, I would say, done. I got to go through and cross some T's, dot some I's, and now it's the process of weeding out the ocean and agreement and putting them in book 3. I think what I'm really wanting to do is make one concise book and maybe leave it at that. I don't know. May stop selling the other two. I don't know. Anyway, I love you. We've been doing this forever. At one point, you reminded me, and right now I'm trying to remind you. So, I love you. Reach out, talk to me. Yeah, bye.